You're watching TVC Breakfast. Now, the society thrives on cultures, traditions, beliefs, and values which are passed on from one generation to another. Values actually are a reflection of ourselves, our character, and our upbringing. Now, most of the times, these values remain intact, particularly till such time as a child remains within the command and control of a family system. But after the formative years, holding on to the values in the changing times is appearing to be far more difficult than it used to be. A decline in values has led to increased greed and corruption, as some people will put it. So, joining me now via Zoom from Abuja to discuss the way forward is Dr. Teresa Olani Olushola, EID's coordinator and Center for Real Impact International. She's also a lecturer at Veritas University. It's nice to have you join me, Dr. Olushola.
Nice to be here. Good morning.
Great. Now, let's break this thing down in bits and pieces so that people can understand. When we often talk about the issue of values, the loss of values in our society today, societal values and all of that, can you break them down? In what contexts are we referring to, and what values are we talking about, and how do we see the values and know that this is the value?
All right, thank you. So the word value, the word values come from the word value, and value is anything that you hold in regard, that you hold in esteem, or you ascribe importance to. In the societal context, values are talked about in the way of behavior, in the way of behaviors, and in our Nigerian society, even from the time of our fathers, we always had some things that we held in high esteem, and we held important, things like respect, things like togetherness, family, things like hard work, things like truthfulness, contentedness, and the likes of them. Things like life. In our cultures, we value life, and that's why we do the naming ceremonies, we do the burial ceremonies, to celebrate life. So this is not strange to our system. They are actually bedrocks of our culture, our cultural beliefs, and the norms by which we think that people should behave in society. I think that's it basically.
All right. Now, we often people talk about the good old days. Like you talk about the issue of respect, family values, name, integrity, and things like that. But this is far changing. And one would say, some people would say, well, the good times were better than the way it is right now. Others will say, well, the trends have changed and we have to live with it. But the point there is, when we talk about this changing trend, are we better off now or we are worse off if we have to compare what used to be and what we have right now?
Yeah, so basically our lifestyles are better, meaning that we live more comfortable lives now, but we have our values are gradually eroding due to modernization and globalization. Now we have people seeing what others are doing in their own countries, in their own cultures, and taking up these cultures, especially the Western culture. For us in Africa now, we are taking a lot of the Western culture and our own specific African values are being eroded. So I would say it's a dicey thing. So we have to, basically, I think we have to strike a balance in between having a better life, and actually maintaining our values, because that's what makes us stand out as Africans. That's what makes us stand out as Nigerians. That's what makes us different from every other person in the world. So for me, I think it's been good, but in the way of our identity, we are actually gradually losing our identity. So in that front, it hasn't been so good.
All right. Now, the point there is, in pitching these things together, are we misunderstanding the need to be civilized in the modern times and maintaining our peculiarity and who we are, like you use the word identity, are we misunderstanding what these things should be? Because every young person now, especially in the metropolitan or in the cities, even the concept of speaking their mother tongue and native languages, some people feel very uncomfortable speaking that. Everybody just wants to speak English and they just move on.
Yeah, I think we are actually misunderstanding it because I actually took a lesson from the war going on in Ukraine now. I noticed that when the bomb started to fall, they started to wrap up because Ukraine was said to be a world UNESCO's country, had a lot of artifacts, that represented their own culture, and they wanted to preserve this even with the war coming. So even aside from the war, you would normally think that they should flee for their lives, but they actually took time to say, okay, let us protect our heritage and all that. So for us as Africans, I think we are actually misunderstanding this, and we are sacrificing our identity on the front of globalization and making our lives better. And I think we need to start to re-emphasize this, that's what makes us stand out. If you go to London, for example, myself and yourself are speaking English now, and that's our lingua franca in Nigeria, because we have so many languages, but this one language helps us to understand each other. If you go to the streets of London, every other person speaks English. If you're in the bus in London, everybody speaks English. So, and then when you're speaking the English as a Nigerian, you wouldn't even sound like the owners of the English. So why don't you learn your own language, that makes you stand out, that makes you different, that gives you that identity that this is who I am, and makes you basically different from every other person. That makes you an interesting person. Okay, there's something else different about this person. There's something I can learn from this person. There's a new thing I could discover, from relating with this person. There's beauty in this culture and all that. So I think we are actually sacrificing globalization, comfort, and all that for our cultural values. And this the platforms, to maintain or to inculcate these values, actually the family, and now we find out that a lot of parents, so we have mothers now that are working. In those days, we had fathers, we had chores for both men and women, but we found out that women actually revolved around the home to take care of the children and all that. It's not a bad thing now that women are working. I work, and I'm also a mother, but I think we need to strike that balance. If we're actually copying the Western culture, I think that we should also learn something from them. I had the opportunity to, be there at some point, and a friend told me, she said, if I have to get married, myself and my partner, because they know that it's going to be a sacrifice and it's going to be a full-time job. So we as parents, as African parents, need to dedicate more time to parenting, even as we strive to achieve our career, even as we strive to make a difference in society. Our primary responsibility, if you decide to get married and you decide to have children, because I feel this is the first call, this is the first point where values are inculcated in people. So parents need to be more intentional. In those days, we used to have communities, family, extended families, raising up children. So it's aside from your parents, you have members of your family, your uncles, your grandpas, the oldest people in the family, teaching you the values, teaching you the culture, people in the community. A child does something wrong, they can actually address the child, and correct the child. But now we find ourselves not living in those situations anymore. We live in, flats, houses, and all that. So there's less and less interaction with others, and it's just the parents and their children. And then these parents, again, don't have enough time to spend with their children. Sometimes it's the house help who might not even know better and all that. So the families now have to do more work. They have to be more intentional in raising children. The other thing I think is the schools. That's the second point of introducing values to children and actually teaching them wrong or right. we now have a lot of proliferation of schools. Aside from the government schools, we have the private schools, and I think sometimes now we tend to compromise so that, okay, parents don't take their children away from our school. So instead of maintaining certain values, we can bend the rules for certain people and all that. And gradually we find out these values are eroding. We used to have schools that schools usually have mottos. So mottos can be hard work, could be truthfulness and all that. But then are we actually carrying out these mottos? Are we actually putting these values in children? Are we actually putting these values in individuals? So we find out that there's a lot of compromise on that front. That's very rampant now. You find compromise in the school system. And then going to the larger society, yes, as I said before, even people in the community could correct children, but then we don't have that anymore because you're afraid, okay, I might say something wrong and then someone might call them. In Nigeria, it's not rampant. We used to have the lawsuits in most countries. You do something, you even look at somebody in a way and they could actually attack you for that. So we celebrate a lot of mediocrity in our society now. And I think that's not good. That's not something to teach the younger ones. We should celebrate hard work. We should celebrate honesty. We should actually give due credit to some of these things. When people actually take the time to behave right in societies, in the society, we should actually celebrate them and we should condemn bad behavior. And lastly, in the case of the government now, we have rules, we have a lot of policies, but the issue is the implementation. So there are policies that, okay, when a certain bad behavior is noticed or you commit that, you're actually supposed to pay in a certain way. But then we have that delay. People take longer to get justice, for ill committed to them and all that. So it's actually cuts across all facets of our society, the responsibility of sustaining and values in individuals. So everybody has a part to play in this, and I think we should begin to play this part as right. All
right, now, Dr. Lushala, from where we are right now with what you have noticed in the society, we have become more modernized. The society is becoming, or the cities are becoming more industrialized. Life is becoming more individualistic. People are a little more self-centered than the community where everybody cares for everybody and all of that. Do you think, as we crave for more modernization and for more say civilization or Western civilization, as the case may be, do you think we can go back to having things the way they used to be, talking about those individual values, because mommies and daddies are becoming more busy, or they're busier by the day, and then the issue of equality of everyone and rights and all this making people becoming more centered around what they can do. Do you think we can go back to the way things used to be? Dr. Lushala, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Good. I was asking that, do you think things can go back to the way they used to be with all of the values that we're talking about, noticing the fact that, or considering the fact that people are becoming busier, cities are opening up, becoming more developed, we're connecting globally than we used to be. There are issues of rights, there are issues of people expressing themselves and checking on what they can do and all of that. Do you think all of this can make the society still go back to what they used to be?
I feel it's impossible for us to go back to the setting we used to have in those days. It's impossible. But with this new front that we have, with the globalization and all that, I think that we need to be more intentional. We need to be more intentional. We need to portray these values, as worthy, as things that are good, that will benefit everybody. So we need to, as I said before, the family needs to tell, stress the importance of these values. Our societies, as a larger society, have to be able to reward these values. And then when we talk about the society, we have things that help us associate better with the society, so like media and all that. These are actually fronts. These are things that we didn't have in the times of our parents. These are things that they did not have. And these are things I feel that are contributing, to the erosion of values now. So because of some of the things that we show on media, specifically maybe women announcing more as the sexuality, of individuals are being more portrayed now, than it used to be. So if we can actually show more modesty, on this front, and so those days, like I was interacting with someone earlier, and then it's like, okay, those days people even used to wear loin clothes, used to have leaves around themselves. So girls used to have leaves around themselves, loin clothes, and they had nothing upstairs. When I said upstairs, they didn't have anything above, and then there was no instance of rape, and all. It wasn't as common as it used to be today. So this is the front I'm talking about, that the media is contributing. We show a lot of this sexuality and all that. So if we can actually start to preach or to show decency, modesty, and to project the fact that things that are that's like honesty, hard work, and all that are actually things that are worthy of doing and are things that are worthy of emulating. We project that more, and we celebrate, or we do not celebrate mediocrity. We do not celebrate like in our own context now. You see people who are known to have done something wrong in the society, and then they come out, as leaders again, and then we go out to support them and all that. So if we do not, we try to start retracing our steps in those fronts, I think that we will be better off. I think the crux here is intentionality. We have to be intentional about which we have to know that these things are our identity. That's what makes us stand out as Africans, and that we have to maintain it. It has to be a conscious effort on all fronts.
All right. It's okay. We have to leave you here now. Dr. Theresa Olani Olushola, thank you very much for talking to us. We have to be more intentional so we can achieve all of the values that we crave for. Thank you very much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.